Middle School Social Studies, Module 6, Short Content Essays. Structure of the exam. You will be presented with 3 prompts and will need to respond to each. The prompts will address your knowledge of history and social studies. These may include the following: United States history related to government and civics, United States history related to economics, world history related to geography, world history related to economics, or world history related to government and civics. Scoring scale. Each essay will be scored on a scale from 0 to 3. Essays that receive a score of 3 will address both the history and the social studies part of the question. To receive a score of 3 on the geography question, you should accurately interpret the map or prompt. To receive a score of 3 on the history question, you should accurately apply your knowledge of history to the prompt that you have been given. Practice question. What does the map show about the area impacted by severe wind erosion? Based on your knowledge of history, explain how the population of the counties most severely impacted would have changed. Note the map key in the bottom right corner. The map key indicates both the severity of the erosion and the years in which the erosion took place. Also, note the lines around the counties. Note that the dotted line represents severe wind erosion 1935 to 1936. The dashed line represents severe wind erosion in 1938, and the solid line represents the most severe wind erosion 1935 through 1938. Also notice the color gradient scale. As the color darkens, the erosion represented is more severe. Notes. First, take detailed notes over what you see in the prompt. On the map, note that the counties most severely impacted by severe wind erosion are grouped closely together. This suggests that the wind erosion was a localized issue, not nationwide. It also shows that all counties impacted were not impacted equally. Practice answer. What does the map show about the area impacted by severe wind erosion? The map illustrates that the Dust Bowl impacted a 6-state area that included Colorado, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and New Mexico. The disbursement of the counties most adversely impacted shows a concentrated center where the severe wind erosion had the greatest impact. The severity of the wind erosion lessens as you move further from the center of impact. This suggests that people living in these counties would have faced significant loss of topsoil, and that those employed in agriculture in these counties would have suffered significant losses. Note that the response accurately interprets the map, understanding what the map shows. It also identifies the trend in the data, the lessening impact of severe wind erosion as you move further from the center of the impact zone. Question 2. Notes. One very important strategy that you can use when approaching the questions is to brainstorm what you know about time periods in history before you begin writing your answer to the question. Brainstorm. What do I know about population changes during the Dust Bowl? I know that in general, there was a large migration out of states impacted by the Dust Bowl because the loss of topsoil made the land impossible to farm. I also know that this was during the Great Depression, so jobs were not readily available for people leaving states impacted by the Dust Bowl. This would suggest that the population of these counties impacted by the Dust Bowl would have dropped because people would have had to travel long distances outside the county to find work. Question 2. Practice answer. Based on your knowledge of history, Explain how the population of the counties most severely impacted would have changed. The population of the counties most severely impacted by wind erosion during the Dust Bowl would have dropped. The Dust Bowl happened during the Great Depression, and jobs were difficult to find throughout the country. People affected would have had to travel long distances to find work, somewhere beyond their county and likely beyond their state. Therefore, the population of the most severely impacted counties would have dropped significantly. Note that the answer specifically addresses the map from the prompt, and it utilizes my knowledge of history to give context and make a logical inference about what would have happened to the population of the affected counties. Practice question. Describe the population disbursement on the map. Question 2. Explain the historical reason for the population disbursement illustrated on the map. Note that the areas on the map further east have a greater density of population. Note that the population density is less as you travel further west. Also, note that there is a greater population density along the west coast than in other western regions. Question 1 notes. When I look at the map, I see that the population is most dense on the east coast and grows less dense as you move west. The areas of greatest density are in the northeast. There are also moderate density areas on the west coast. Practice answer. Describe the population disbursement on the map. The population map shows that the disbursement of population in the United States is not equal across states. There is a large concentration of population in the northeast. The eastern half of the country is generally more populated, while the west is more sparsely populated, except for some concentrations of population along the west coast. Note that I observed both the areas of concentration, east and west coast, and I noted the areas with a less concentrated population. Question 2. Prewriting notes. Brainstorm. What do I know about history that would explain why the east and west coast have more population than the central states? I know that the 13 colonies were on the east coast and that westward expansion happened over a long period of time. I also know that the California Gold Rush and the Dust Bowl caused significant westward migrations during the 19th and 20th century that would explain why there was a dense center of population along the west coast. Sample answer. Explain the historical reason for the population disbursement illustrated on the map. The population disbursement on the map indicates that the eastern part of the country is more heavily populated than the western part of the country. Understanding that the 13 original colonies were located on the east coast and that the population gradually moved west after the Louisiana Purchase, this population disbursement seems logical. The concentration of population on the west coast could be explained by the gold rush in the late 1800s and the westward migration due to the Dust Bowl in the 1930s. Note that in the practice answer we referenced both the map and the historical reasons that would explain the disbursement of population. Practice question. What does this map reveal about the relationship between Europe and North America after 1713? Based on your knowledge of history, what steps did the states that comprised the original 13 colonies have to take to expand beyond the Appalachian Mountains into the central part of the country? Note that the areas in the map covered in pink were under British control. Note that the areas of light blue were under French control, and note that the areas in green were under Spanish control. Question 1. Prewriting notes. This map shows 3 major European countries having control of the majority of the land that is now the United States and Canada. England appears to have control of the east coast and a large portion of Canada. France appears to have control of the land that is now the central United States. Spain appears to have control of Florida, Mexico, and the islands in the Caribbean, and also some of the land that is in the western United States. It appears that there are not clear borders or boundaries between the territories, since most have large areas that are contested. Question 1, practice answer. The map reveals that after 1773, European nations and explorers laid claim to large parts of the land that they considered the New World. In what is now the United States, the British claimed the east coast, the French claimed the central portion of the country, and the Spanish claimed parts of the southern United States and Mexico. It is significant to note that there is no mention of the Native Americans who lived on the land, only the European countries who claimed it. This suggests that the relationship between Europe and North America was a colonial relationship, where they claimed land for their country with the intention of conquering the native people and making it a colony. It also shows that their claims to certain areas were often contested because there were not clear borders or boundary markers to delineate the land each country had claimed. Note that our practice answer addressed all 3 countries mentioned in the map key, as well as the fact that some areas are contested. Question 2 notes. Brainstorm. What do I know about westward territorial expansion? I know that in 1803, the Louisiana Purchase was a transaction between the United States and France that gave the United States the right to settle the land in the central United States. I also know that this led to western migration of people, including trappers and traders, as well as settlers seeking to establish farms and ranches. Question 2, practice answer. The states that made up the original 13 colonies were located along the eastern coast of the country. The land held west of them was owned by the French. In 1803, the Louisiana Purchase gave the United States the legal right to settle that land. This triggered a significant westward expansion because the United States government offered free land to people who would homestead or agree to live on the land and develop it. This westward migration also led to the removal of Native Americans from their homes, a forced migration called the Trail of Tears that took place between 1831 and 1877. Note: my answer addresses multiple steps in the expansion process. First, the purchase, then the removal of native people, and the settlement by Americans. The rubric. Your response will be scored on a scale of 0 to 3. It is very important that you are familiar with the characteristics of each of the scores on this scale. A score of 0 will be given if there is no response, if the response is only a rephrasing of the question without an answer, or if the response is off topic or incomplete. A score of 1 will be given if the response shows little understanding of the stimulus, is basically inaccurate or incomplete, if it provides little of the required analysis, or if inappropriate subject matter knowledge is used in the response. The rubric, score 2. A score of 2 will be given if an essay shows an adequate understanding of the stimulus, provides a mostly accurate and complete response, provides most of the required analysis, applies mostly appropriate subject knowledge, but a score of 2 may be given if an essay contains significant errors. Notice the differences between the 1 and 2. The keywords are highlighted so that you can tell what things will cause you to get a 1 and what things will cause you to get a 2. However, since we're targeting a 3, let's look in detail at what it takes to make your best score. The rubric 3, your target score. Note that in a 3, the reader shows a thorough understanding of the stimulus. Note that it is important to address multiple parts of the stimulus. Be certain that your answer is not one-dimensional or only focused on one small part of the stimulus that is provided. In addition, your answer provides accurate and complete response. Remember that accuracy in your interpretation is important. You want to be certain that what you say about the stimulus is correct and that the data you draw from is accurate. Try to reference specific data points as often as possible to show a clear understanding. Also, notice that just as the first criteria listed thorough, this one says that your response should be complete. Again, remember not to focus on a single aspect, but on multiple parts of the stimulus. The response provides the analysis required by the question. Read the question carefully and identify the task that you are being given. When you practice, underline the verbs or action words in each question. This will help you focus on the task the question wishes you to perform. A score of 3 also applies appropriate subject matter knowledge. The question will expect you to have knowledge beyond what is presented in the stimulus. Use your outside knowledge to effectively answer the question. Remember to be as specific as possible. Also, remember that you need to make a clear connection between your knowledge and the stimulus. Note that your response may contain minor errors and still receive a 3. Final thoughts. It's a good idea to brainstorm and jot down notes before you begin to write. Prewriting can help you organize your thoughts and help avoid the need to make major revisions. While this is not a literary essay, it is important to proofread. Write in complete, coherent sentences that are easy for your reader to understand. Make a point clearly and make clear connections between what you draw from your subject knowledge and the stimulus. Finally, take a deep breath and relax. Anxiety can cause you to forget what you know. Take a moment to calm yourself and collect your thoughts. This can have a huge positive impact on your score.